The old farmer sat slumped in the corner booth of the Prairie Saloon, blood trickling from his split lip, his weathered hands trembling as they clutched an empty whiskey glass. That's how things worked out here in the forgotten corners of Wyoming, where justice was as scarce as rain in August. Thomas Whitmore had been a proud man once, back when his wife was alive and his ranch thrived under the endless prairie sky. But the years had worn him down like wind on stone. His cattle were gone, sold off one by one to pay debts. His land was mortgaged to the bank. All he had left was his daughter Clara and his dignity. And on this particular Tuesday evening, a stranger had taken one of those things from him over nothing more than an accidental glance. The drifter's name was Cole, and he wore his cruelty like a badge. He drifted into town 3 days prior with 2 other men, the kind who made decent folk cross to the other side of the street. They'd been drinking since noon, and Cole had been looking for trouble since the moment he woke up mean that morning. When Thomas accidentally caught his eye while walking to the bar for his one weekly drink, Cole saw his opportunity. The old man never saw the first punch coming. By the time he hit the floor, blood was already staining the sawdust, and the piano had gone silent. Cole stood over him, waiting for him to get up so he could knock him down again, and when Thomas stayed down, Cole spit on him and returned to his whiskey, satisfied. That's when the doors swung open, and Clara Whitmore stepped inside with Henry following close behind. The sight stopped every conversation in the room. Clara was 26 years old, with her mother's fierce eyes and her father's stubborn jaw. She worked the neighboring ranch as a horse trainer, the best in 3 counties, and she'd learned long ago that in this country a woman had to be twice as tough as any man just to be taken half as seriously. Henry was different. He was a quiet man, a blacksmith with gentle hands and a poet's heart, who'd loved Clara since they were children. He stood 6'4" with shoulders broad as a barn door, but everyone in town knew he wouldn't hurt a fly unless the fly threatened someone he loved. When Clara had heard what happened to her father through the telegraph operator's wife, she'd found Henry at his forge and said just 2 words, "I need you." Clara's eyes swept the room and found her father in the corner, then moved to Cole at the bar. She walked forward with measured steps, her boots echoing on the wooden floor. "You put your hands on my father," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the saloon. Cole turned slowly, a smirk playing on his lips. That old fool. He had it coming. "Maybe you want some too, sweetheart," his companions laughed. But the sound died when they saw Henry step up beside Clara, his presence filling the doorway like a mountain. "I'll give you one chance to apologize to him and walk away," Clara said, her hand steady at her side. What Cole didn't know was that Clara had been shooting since she was 8 years old, that she could thread a needle at 50 paces with her father's old revolver. What he didn't know was that Henry, for all his gentleness, had once stopped a spooked stallion with his bare hands to save a child. Cole's hand moved toward his gun, but he never cleared leather. Clara's draw was lightning, her barrel aimed square at his chest before he'd even touched his grip. "I said apologize," she repeated, and this time there was iron in her voice that made even hardened men step back. The saloon held its breath. Cole's face went from red to white as he realized he'd miscalculated badly. Henry took 1 step forward, and that was enough. Cole's hands shot up. All right, he stammered. "I'm sorry." "We'll leave." "Not yet," Clara said. "First you help my father to his feet. Then you pay for his drink. Then you get on your horses and you ride out of this territory and you never come back." Her voice never wavered, never rose, but it carried the weight of every wrong that had ever been done to her family, every hardship they'd endured, every fight they'd survived. Cole did exactly as she said, his companions already backing toward the door. They helped Thomas to his feet, paid the bartender twice what the old man's drink cost, and rode out into the gathering dusk like ghosts fleeing daylight. Clara holstered her gun and wrapped her arm around her father's shoulders. Henry took his other side, and together they walked out of the Prairie Saloon into the cool evening air. Behind them, the piano started playing again, and the bartender poured drinks for a room full of people who'd just learned that sometimes, when the law won't protect you, family will. Thomas looked at his daughter, at this fierce woman who'd become everything her mother had been and more, and at Henry who'd come without question because he was needed. "I'm sorry you had to see me like this," he whispered. Clara squeezed his shoulder tighter.